Hello all you soul fishers out there. I'm making this video to hopefully help guide a couple of you down the path to find greatness. Currently there's a great divide between the few soul fists who are MVPing all content. Then there are the many who are struggling to find their way with this class and honestly feel pretty useless. I'm going to go over my build, which is a little bit off meta, but hey, it works for me. I will also discuss a couple of the skill tripods and skill choices that we have that, people, they might do one or the other, and honestly, they both work. Lastly, I will talk about the burst windows, and yes, unfortunately, even the Energy Overflow build has burst windows. And honestly, I've noticed most players are not using these burst windows, which is actually the biggest reason for losing DPS. So you might be wondering, who the hell is this guy and why should I listen to him? Well, that's a great question. I'm just a normal guy like most of you, but I do have an extensive raiding background where I've always enjoyed taking the tougher classes and, well, making them look great. I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment. And if that's not enough, which it shouldn't be, just take a look at some of these screenshots and you'll see it's no mistake that Soul Fist is actually one of the top DPSers out there. So let's start off with combat stats. At first glance, most of you probably already want to close this video and leave a comment telling me how stupid I am. Yes, I do have more crit than swiftness, but let me tell you why. In every boss fight, how often do they stand still and just let you unload on them? How often do you really get to use all of your skills off cooldown? The roughly 15% cooldown reduction I lost by having all this crit only makes my skills have a roughly 1 to 2 second longer cooldown, which means in those full swiftness builds, if you don't use your skill every single time within 2 seconds of it being up, then you actually aren't getting in any more skills than me. But hey, if you're able to stay on a boss's ass 24/7, then kudos to you. Instead, I aim for a 70 to 80% crit chance, self-buffed, just to maximize my own damage for when I actually can do damage. And then they're just rest win into swiftness. Plus, having a high crit rate with Keen Blunt just feels so damn good, and I'll show you that soon. So let's talk about engravings now, shall we? The first engraving for an Energy Overflow build should always be Adrenaline. Doesn't matter what stats you use, crit or swiftness, it's always going to be Adrenaline. The next couple, though, are where people start to diverge, and we'll look into a couple of the common ones. I, of course, with my high crit rate build, use Keen Blunt as my second engraving because, high crit rate, high crit damage, who doesn't love it? And I know Energy Overflow 3 isn't the best, but you know what? It was cheap and easy to get. I have noticed a lot of people using Raid Captain and Spirit Absorption, though. And all I'm really going to say about that is if you need a second engraving that adds no DPS to make your first engraving efficient, then you really just are losing out on an entire engraving. But wait, you might think, Spirit Absorption gives attack speed and movement speed. Well, sadly, those two stats don't actually make you do more damage. They just make your class feel nicer. If your engraving isn't giving you attack power, damage, crit rate or crit damage, or even a cooldown reduction, it actually isn't increasing your damage. Of course, you can use Grudge, Curse Stall, or Increased Mass, but please stop using Raid Captain. Raid Captain is for classes that actually have skills that increase their movement speed, which we actually do have in a tripod, but unfortunately, we do not use. Let's start talking about skill choices now. The first place where most people disagree with is Pulverizing Palm versus Bolting Crash. I personally use Bolting Crash. Just look at the utility that this skill has. Weak point level 2, stagger mid, counter, yes. What does Pulverizing Palm have? Just a weak point level 1. Pretty disappointing if you ask me. But the reason why most people use Pulverizing Palm is because of this tripod right here. Attack power plus 25%. It sounds so good, doesn't it? Well, that's where you're actually going wrong with the class, actually. Soul Fist their class is basically based around burst windows, and you already have 2 skills that give you those self buffs, and unfortunately the self buffs do not stack. Your first one is coming from Energy Release, right here, Ready Attack. You have 6 seconds, for me at level 3 tripod, of a 47% increase in attack power. Your second one comes from Flash Step, Victory Shout. Here, after using it 3 times, that's roughly a 40% increase in attack power. You should be able to use all of your skills within these 2 burst windows, which is why you don't actually need a third one, because that's just completely overkill. So instead of Ready Attack, you should be grabbing the Party Synergy buff, which is why I have it on Bolting Crash, because Bolting Crash lasts for 10 seconds, Pulverizing Palm only lasts for 8, which means less having to use this skill means more time to use skills that actually do damage. So let's talk about the actual damage skills. I'm pretty sure between most people it's pretty agreed upon that Force Orb, Merciless Pummel, Shadow Breaker, and Heavenly Squash are the best DPS skills. Where I see a lot of people changing it up though is Tempest Blast. What I've noticed is a lot of people replace Tempest Blast with either Lightning Palm, or some even like to do Crippling Barrier. But if I'm being honest, Tempest Blast just flat out does more damage. And we'll even do a little demonstration right here to just show you how much more damage it's actually doing. So, let me get my adrenaline sacs going here. What, like 400k damage with Lightning Palm, right? If it crits, which it's not critting, there we go. And of course I am using the, all the good stuff here. Now we go to Crippling Barrier, Hard Hitter of course, Desperate Attack. How much damage is it doing? Let the buff run off. So most people usually only one tap it in raids, because if you hold it, let's be honest, it takes forever to go through, but it actually does a lot of damage if you're able to get a full cast off. But one tapping, we're looking at about, I think it's 300k on a crit if it crits. Yeah, 300k on a crit. Now we look at Tempest Blast, and my Tempest Blast is actually not in the maximum damage output. If you get Eradication, it does like 50% more damage, but I don't like it because it just takes too long. Everything about my Soul Fist build is about quickness. I don't have any skill that takes a long time to cast, keeps me standing still for too long, other than Merciless Pummel of course, but everything else is quick and easy to use. So, Tempest Blast damage. 681, 681. As you can see, it's doing almost twice the damage as Lightning Palm or Crippling Barrier. So, and then the thing I love about Tempest Blast over Lightning Palm or Crippling Barrier is that it's ranged. From downtown, I can hit it. Will Lightning Palm hit it? No. Will Crippling Barrier hit it? No. Tempest Blast. Your one reliable range skill. So the most important part about playing a Soul Fist, and if you learn anything about this video, it's about playing around the burst windows. I previously talked about it a little bit with the skills, with Flash Step and Energy Release, that they increase your damage, just flat out. How much do they increase your damage? Well, let's actually take a look. We will get up my adrenaline again. Oh, wait. So if you remember from before, Tempest Blast was doing about 700k. On crits, that is. Now, 1.1 million. with just the flash step buff, which is actually smaller than energy release. Now, let's look at energy release. How much damage is it going to do? One mil again. So they really do give about the same amount, but as you can see, 1 million versus 700k without the buff. That's like a, what, 30, 35%, maybe even going across 40, just off the top of my head, damage increase by using your skills with the burst window. So that means it's actually better to hold your skills off for a couple seconds if it means getting off a skill within one of those burst windows. And I'll show you in these videos below what it looks like to actually just use the burst windows and what damage looks like if you are using them correctly. So we're going to watch a quick little clip here of me fighting Yoho, and you'll see the use of the 2 burst windows I use, where pretty much every damage skill I use is going to be within one of the 2 skills. And you'll see that I might not do, you know, huge numbers like a Surge Deathblade, but if you do actually look at the amount of damage I'm doing, there's a lot of hits in the hundreds of thousands. And when I say a lot, you know, you can't even keep track of all the hits there. One thing I did right there that most people don't realize is that you have 2 seconds before you can use another flash step. So if I actually go back there just a little bit, Yoho's attackable right now. So I'm gonna set up my next, you know, burst window, right? But Yoho jumps into the air. So what do? I didn't waste my burst window. I actually wait about 2 seconds in between each flash step so that I can delay it enough to get my burst window as soon as Yoho lands. And being able to take advantage of that is actually very big for, you know, just maximizing your damage. So thank you for watching the video, and I guess if you have any questions or comments, or if you still think I'm stupid for having more crit than swiftness, just leave them down below, and I hope to see you guys on the MVP charts one day.